Good day, ladies and gentlemen of the meditation community that has found a place for itself, a home, a family, and has been using YouTube as a tool to basically reach out to other people with my new video blog called basically building a legacy, video legacy. What I'm trying to promote is a lifestyle which is who bases itself in the practice of yoga, and who tries to accommodate for such a practice, and that tries to work around the things in life which promote yoga, and how to get those things around yourself, how to build those things around yourself in order for you to be able to meditate for longer hours. I will first, since this is the first of many videos that are yet to come in the future, and hopefully eventually I'll be able to do some live streaming. I think the most important part that I feel right now at the stage that I'm in my life is that I already have the techniques that I need in order to practice meditation and yoga. So usually we would tell people, well, if you want to start practicing in a very serious fashion, find yourself like a team, a team of people that practice and that take it themselves seriously. That way, when you lose your track of that goal, your memory already has it. You have a connection in your mind that's created to people that are that share that. In reality, we don't judge what they're doing at this time, because they may also have lost their track at any given point, but the memory remains the same. And this is what happens to me. I think of the people from the Yogiraj Siddhanath Gurunath group of meditationers. I think of the Art of Living meditationers. I think of the group of Dr. Stephen Greer, who is a leader in meditation and has taught a lot of people, probably thousands by now, several thousands, how to do his meditation to communicate with different entities, and basically to be an ambassador to the universe. That's the name of their training. So ultimately, you have all these memories that serve as some sort of a root. Just like when you have a pleasurable experience, you may be drawn to it by virtue of the memory. You may also be brought back to the good things that you have encountered in your spiritual life when you are in a state of difficulty. But I'm not all that much in a state of difficulty right now in my life, but I am rather in a state where I know what I need to do, and I have the capacity. And I'm actually this video is almost like a chronicle of what my spirituality has been to this point today. It represents for a very small part. It feels to me more or less like a page within a book, a 300-page book. It's a part of it. But I am sure I'm going to be able to put a lot of things together for a lot of you. And eventually I hope that the techniques that you see here become some sort of basically, not necessarily a technique in meditation, but a technique of understanding on how your behavior works, and this is something that actually I personally feel that it's a result of meditation, and something that I've been able to benefit from, and it's to be able to see contrast. When you practice meditations and you get different points of views, you typically are able to create contrast, thanks to the point of views that exist between one and the other. So not as to define yourself, but as to simply understand what motivates you and where your behaviors come from. That's basically where I am right now in this meditation part of my existence in of itself. What I hope that in the future that I'll be able to create is I hope that I'll be able to create a center where we can welcome meditation teachers and yoga teachers, and in that center that basically we would live in that center, like myself and the very few ones that are willing to take on a life of meditation, which will take perhaps 10 to 12 hours on a daily basis. That's the ultimate goal. And of course, that it's a very difficult goal if we don't have interest in it, but it's not a very difficult goal if we don't. For example, a lot of people work 12, 13 hours a day, and you may think, well, in a week, if you meditated that much, you probably would be an entirely different person. But you're able to do it for money, for $10 an hour. So why would we not be able to do it for perhaps $0 an hour at this time? But the difference in perspective and the contrast that you're able to create is definitely something that you can then use. And this is something that I have found out on how does meditation make you a better doctor. It actually doesn't necessarily make me a better doctor, but it definitely has improved the way my communication has been between people. There is, I have to say that also on a personal level, with some of the difficult things that have happened in my life, and with meditation, I'm basically able to withdraw a little bit from it, and look at it with different perspective. And we always try to, like when you create lemon juice, you squeeze the lemon and you press it together and you try to obtain the juice. Life of sorts we try to create with difficult experience, like a morale, an idea as to why things happened, and why or what can I do for them not to happen in the future. And ultimately what this boils down to is to actually create the perfect set of patterns and behaviors and habits for yourself. This is the actual goal of what I'm trying to do. This whole video legacy thing is actually, the actual goal is to create a pattern that people not only recognize, but that they find useful, that is flawless for themselves, and that ultimately when they fall down, when they fail, they actually, it becomes an obvious thing to themselves. Oh, this happened because of this happened because I did this. That's what I'm trying to basically decrease the gap between when things, bad things happen, and when good things happen. Because if it's valid for bad things, it also is valid for good things. That's the wonderful thing about contrast. You can see it bright or you can see it dark, and depending on where you want to be, because of your experience, you're able to gauge all these different nuances of or the subtleties behind things. And I can say personally, it has greatly helped me to have meditated throughout the years. And when I'm saying that it gives you perspective, I'm not trying to tell you this is something that happens in an abrupt situation, like a lot of yogis that meditate and suddenly they enter into a new state of consciousness, and then they come back from it, then they feel like they're a new person. I'm actually talking about a process of your own personality changing through time, being able to introspect a little bit more easily, finding out for yourself when you're actually engaging with people what's going to happen. And to me, this is actually a field of meditation that most people don't even talk about. And it's, what are you able to tell? Like animals are able to tell when there's danger. It's not, and I'm not saying you're not able to. I'm not saying you're able to tell a future, because I mean, some people maybe. I don't care if they do. I'm saying from my own self, what needs to happen is that you're so self-aware of your body that you actually notice how your breath changes. And that's actually the canary in the gold mine. That's the meteorologist that you have. Actually, it's even more subtle than that. But from my perspective at this point, definitely I can notice how my breath will change. And it could be simply because I enter a conversation with someone and they are very anxious, or they speak in a way that seems very loud. They may be speaking slowly, but when they word things, it's very loud. There's something, a character that's extremely loud to how they speak to you. And this again is something that I feel happens when you meet people that are slightly agitated. That has been my experience. So allowing with that There are many beautiful things that I have experienced throughout the years in my meditational practice, or more frequently than not when I fall asleep. I would say at this point that a lot of what you dream has to do in the frequency at which you fall asleep in a dream and you wake up in your dream. What I'm trying to say by that is that you are the same individual, the same personality is actually broadcasted in a dream, and to be able to do that is what people basically call a lucid dream. It's a dream where you are fully aware that you're dreaming, and you're looking around and you don't know what you're going to do, quite frankly, because you're asleep, you're dreaming, and basically you know that the sky is the limit. Some of those dreams you can take it a step further. You actually can create in the dream itself with your mind, with your desire, which actually, the way I feel it in a dream is almost like a focus of getting into when you see a child play a video game, and and then they see, or they watch a movie, and then they see you and they go like go Power Ranger, that, or they shoot you with fake guns. It's that same thing, but actually when you put your will into that in a dream, it actually creates a situation. And that's also something that's very beautiful. It's very complex, and it's part of the richness of basically taking on this meditation practice. A lot of these things you don't really control it, but the way you control it is through your waking consciousness. So, such as right now for me, if I wanted to have a lucid dream, I know the first thing I should do is meditate and go to sleep right away. Why is that? I don't know. I actually have no explanation for it, but it definitely happens far more frequently when I go to sleep right after I meditate. So, in a nutshell, what I want to say about this whole video legacy thing is that hopefully with these videos, a lot of you people are going to have access to a group of people that have as a main concern and interest the development of their own consciousness within a societal structure, which is usually what is very often condemned in the yogi culture, right? You would hear very often in the yogi culture that you have to do vairagya, you have to do detachment. The word they use very much is detachment, and basically they don't say that it's the attachments are a bad thing, but what they basically say is when you are attached, you're almost like a puppet. It may be your dreams, your desires, this and that, and so they promote detachment as a method to achieve all these things. And unfortunately, attachments are known for the very sad things, which are related to them, which is suffering. And classically, that's what they allude to. They refer to a woman that has misses her husband that recently died in a car accident or whatever, and then she's thinking, she's glooming over it, and the attachment, which no longer serves a purpose, is now become a burden for her. So I want to establish the things that are needed within basically a logical system, something that is first of all symbiotic with what you want in life. That is extremely difficult. In reality, today, in today's world, the symbiosis between the person, the individual, and the society that he's a part of is very difficult, because the balance in society is not always fair. The balance is very dollar oriented, and not a lot of people have the capacity to say, well, okay, I'm gonna start meditating and say, screw everything, screw the $200,000 I have in debt, and forget that. Yeah. So the reality of the fact is that I'm trying to create something that's going to allow you to, if you have $200,000 debt in the bank, to pay it, okay? But to also, by the time you pay it, that you look at the time that, you spent working, and you say, well, I did it in a way that is spiritually responsible. So what that means to be spiritually responsible with yourself is to keep things in perspective. You may have debts, and I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your debts, but when you die, all your debts are basically paid. They're paid off that very same moment, because they can't charge you once you're dead. So ultimately, it's not something that you take on to the next role or whatever complex idea people have. When you die, you're dead. That's it. It's over. So what I'm trying to say is that, for example, let's say individual number X, Mr. X is fine. He's living his life like anybody else. He has 25 years left to pay on his mortgage for a very beautiful home that he bought for his family. Suddenly he gets told by his doctor, listen, we did some tests on you. Turns out you have pancreatic cancer. You're gonna live, give you 95% chance that you won't make it past 6 months. So what is that individual bound to do at that time? So should he then stop working? Should he then stop trying to pay his debts? Should he then change his life to then start living a spiritual life? So what I want to create is that, so people don't have to get to a situation like that in their life, which is so turning that at that time they have to then say, okay, now I really need to assess my life. Have I made the right decisions? Am I at the right job? Do I have the right friends? Do I feel happy deep inside? So this is not a bad thing, and that's the good thing of drastic changes. But you don't need cancer to do that. You actually don't even, because if for example, if you're somebody that has hated their job all their life, and you get news like that, are you gonna then keep on working to be responsible and pay whatever debts you have left? Are you then gonna take double shifts of work to pay your debts? Quite honestly, it's not really something that I would recommend to anybody. It's not really something that's even logical to do. Most people would say, well, you know what, then I'm not gonna pay that debt. We'll have to find some way out or something simpler. And so I want to actually create a basic template of sorts, where the human or the individual is going to have a set of options, basically a grid, a methodology that you're going to use, and that this methodology is first of all, in my opinion, it's who you are deep inside. But who you are deep inside is actually, it is not. I don't want to use terms that people refer to frequently, because it loses the nuance of yourself. What I'm trying to say is that basically what I feel I'm doing is something that I'm doing for myself first and foremost, and this is what I want people to be able to do. I want people to be able to basically create for themselves the perfect diet, the perfect daily routine, which includes meditation, the perfect job setting where you're able to work more than 9 hours a day, more than 10 hours a day, and not, one, feel tired, two, have to waste a lot of money for things like transport and feeding yourself. So that's basically what the legacy is an idea of. It's how would you live your life in the best of situations, and in a moral way and in a responsible way with society, because that's ultimately the perfect symbiosis. Is do you have lifestyle habits which are in your own self-interest, one, and two, are they in the self-interest of other people, including animals, society in general, children, the future, your progeny, and your ancestors? So if you have all those things already put together, then this is probably something that you would just listen for the heck of it, for the fun of it, and to see how I got to that situation. So I don't personally feel that I'm there yet, but I would say that thanks to the different things that have happened in my life, I am definitely closer to it, and I have seen one of the biggest and most challenging things that I feel personally that are difficult for people to see is the actual, and it's a very complex thing, but it's very beautiful when you feel it, when you understand it to the point that you don't need to verbalize it, and consequently you people don't tend to do these types of videos when they understand it. They actually just work with that spirit, in that spirit. But what I'm trying to explain basically, and this is also something that I am doing in a sense in a meditation, and I feel it right now, and it's very complex, but it's basically how it's very difficult to complete sentences sometimes when you're in a state of introspection, because even as you're saying these things, you're actually observing yourself. You're observing what your thoughts could be. You're observing your breath. You're observing, are you anxious? Is this the right thing? You're judging yourself at the same time. But it even steps beyond that, and you actually, and what I think I will be able to teach people in the future is how to by and I think first, just do the meditation techniques that the Kriya Yogi people are teaching. You can find a lot of them online. I would definitely suggest seeing a guru like Yogi Siddhartha Gurunath, and then using his expertise to basically jumpstart yourself in that particular goal. So I don't know what these videos are going to look like in the future, but basically I'm trying to catch up just on the idea that I was saying, is that I'm going to try to create that goal, which is a lifestyle of meditation for myself. And then hopefully through the trials and tribulations that I'm going to go through, and the way that you're going to be able to know what I'm going through is basically by me making more of these videos on a daily basis. But it will be with the simple goal to actually achieve a standard of practice, which is basically a time-based practice rather than a goal-set practice. For example, some people have as a goal, I'm going to run the Olympics. Well, I'm going to participate in the Olympics. My goal is not going to be to get to the Olympics. It's actually to be an Olympian every day of my life, for example, So it's a little different, and it's like, you practice to run a mile. You have to, in a competitional setting, you may want to practice running 3 to 6 miles, so that way when you run a mile, you're actually just killing everybody in it. This is actually doing a mile every day. A mile every day, a mile every day, a mile every day. The goal, and I remember Yogi Siddharthanath's conversation on it. He mentioned one time in one of the videos that he was recorded, saying that the amount of hours of meditation that a human being needs to do in a single day to be considered to be doing tapasya, or sacrifice, or observances, or another name that they have is it's not sacrifice. It's really more of a it's like a self-sacrifice, is tapasya. Let me find that out. It won't be long. I'm using Google here. So tapasya is a word in Sanskrit which means to heat. But it basically refers to, the hardcore spiritual practices. Austerities is the actual English, and mortification. Mortification is one of the words that we use in the English language to make reference to it. So when somebody meditates above that time, they're actually creating heat, and what that means, that's up to you. I really don't care about all that much, but this. Ultimately, the life that I'm going to live is going to be a support for that goal of making 10 to 12 hours of meditation a day. And I really hope that you people become encouraged by the fact that people are actually trying to achieve these things, not as a goal to compare, not as a goal to achieve even, because you know what you're going to get by meditating such long hours, but by finding out why do we fail in doing that when we want to do that. I think it's an extremely difficult thing to do, to meditate 10 to 12 hours a day, but in the getting to that particular goal, I'm sure I'm going to learn so much about myself, about why I'm not able to do that. Why am I lazy at times? Why? Because every time that I'm going to fail, I'm going to get back up and continue. And hopefully I can achieve it. And hopefully people that are going to follow this video are actually going to be interested in doing it for themselves. Eventually, hopefully we can all join together and we can meditate together in one place. But again, part of for us to be able to achieve that, it's going to require resources. That's why I'm planning to, I'm actually going to take my money from my salary. I work as a family doctor, and I'm going to be using that to fund this what I consider to be a very beautiful plan. And it's going to be, the legacy thing that we're going to build is basically a blueprint for the future of who we were in the 21st century, in the first few decades of 21st century, what we had in mind, difficulty we had in achieving what was considered to be a difficult spiritual goal at the time. And I think keeping that in introspective, we'll be able to basically succeed at a way faster rate, simply because we will. I mean, somebody has to go first and kind of like cut the grass and make the path for everyone. And a lot of those people don't have the degrees of communication that we do. They don't have the financial support that we have. They're probably lost in some mountain in the Himalayas, and I mean, not lost physically, but from society they are very separated from society. And I'm gonna try to do this within society, and I'm gonna do it on my own regardless. I mean, but then again, since I don't really have a goal, a spiritual goal, I would say my goal, meditation wise, if you could put a goal to it, would be the supraconscious state that Yogi Raj describes as Nirvikalp Samadhi. And I think this can actually be achieved. Now, whether it gets achieved in a linear fashion, or if it gets achieved in a non-linear fashion, this is something that I can't really explain in a video of YouTube. But what it alludes to is like, what are the requirements that, because from a meditation standpoint, you're meditating on, boom, you enter that state. But in reality, this had to happen, this had to happen, this had to happen. You may have some requirements for some of these states of consciousness, and but with practice and with experiences, definitely I'm going to be able to show you perhaps a different person that I am after much meditation. So I want to wish you all the best. And today's the 27th of May, and I'm gonna start my first meditation in this goal sequence with the purpose of sharing in the future what we are doing here.